Hey, it's Bill Gross, the LA probate expert, and I have a series where we interview leading professionals and attorneys in probate, real estate related topics. And today I'm had a chance to speak to a friend we've had before. We've spoken on our other call, Liran Aliav, who is a local attorney focused primarily in estate law and then estate planning and then gets into related law. So, Liran, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Of course, it's great to be here.
So just before we get started, to know a little bit about you, where'd you grow up and how'd you get into the practice of law?
I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I've been here pretty much my entire life. I went to school here, went to high school and college, and law school here. So
Oh,
as LA as you can get.
wow,
Yeah,
wow.
and so I got into this field particularly because it actually has a lot of tax implications to the different styles of work that we do here with real estate, with whether it's property tax, whether it's income tax or capital gains tax. It's all related to the estate planning field, and I believe that my brain is wired that way, to where I like the mathematics and numbers, and so it's a nice interplay for this field for me.
Nice. And you practice currently law in your own law firm. You're a sole practitioner, or it's your firm,
Yes, it's my own firm, Aliav Law.
and you're located in West LA area, La Cienega and Olympia, or Wilshire area, right?
Yeah, right off on Los Angeles and Wilshire, right next to the Los Angeles Park.
Nice. And so, how did you get into once you get into law? Of course, law school, you probably have a fairly wide exposure. How did you end up in estate planning in particular?
Well, I did my law degree, but I also have a master's in taxation.
Oh,
And so when I got out of law school, there was a different types of areas where I could go into, and estate planning was one of them.
oh,
And estate planning also has a lot to do with the estate tax for those that have that issue. Um, right now, it's not as much of an issue as it used to be. It used to be where if you had over $1 million, you had this issue where you needed to uh, figure out different ways to reduce your tax liability should you pass. But now it's up to about 11 and a half, almost $12 million actually, where you could have before you get taxed on every dollar on top of it. So that the master's in taxation sort of driven me towards this specific area of law.
oh, very nice. In
Mhm.
fact, my son-in-law masters taxation as well, though he is on the tax side. He's a CPA by trade, so but similar, the same world.
Yeah.
So, so estate planning is a broad topic. Tell me a little bit. What's a common or most common case or client or situation that you get involved with where you help clients with estate planning? What's the most common, let's say, case of what you work with?
The most common is usually some person or maybe a married couple who, from the grapevine, heard that that there's this process with the courts that happens after death, and they want to learn how to avoid such process or how to minimize the effects of that process. That process is obviously probate, um, and so they come to me. Usually they say, oh, my situation is simple. I don't even have children. I only have a house, and I want to make sure I don't go to probate. Well, I have to unfortunately tell them that you know most likely that's not a simple situation because you don't have children, and that's actually the call I get the most is
Wow.
people who are telling me it's a simple process, but it's not really that simple.
Well, yeah, I think that's everything in business, right? People always assume
Yeah.
it's simple until it's a problem, and then it might be a little too late. And you and I chatted a little bit before we started, and I had this common discussion with buyers of real estate where the number one thing to have success in buying real estate is preparing for the purchase, getting your paperwork together if you're financing. So if you find something, you can execute right away. And it sounds simple, but that's the hard work of preparation. I imagine estate planning is the same, that it's not that it's so complicated, but there's a certain amount of work you have to do to prepare to avoid major problems, correct?
Right, right. So there's, when someone doesn't have natural heirs, for instance, like children, You know, you ask the question, so where do you want it to go after they pass away? And they'll give you, you know, 10 people that they want it to go to and organizations and all this. And it doesn't become so easy because you need separate, customized um, provisions for each one of them. But to tack on to what you were saying with the escrow closing and having all your ducks in a row, one of the ducks that's actually really important to have in a row is a solid trust, right? It's not sometimes people call me, oh, I'm in the middle of escrow. It's going to close in a week. I need a trust. And I'm like, well, you know, title is not going to be happy with that because you have to run it by title, make sure they're okay with it.
Right.
And
Right.
the escrow is going to push it through. And
Right.
we might not have the time to do that. And so, you know, usually this, with the revocable trust, it's less of a problem, but sometimes, you know, we do people want to have their name hidden, right? They want privacy trusts, or they want some sort of way to make sure that their name doesn't appear in the public records when people are searching for their name to see what they own, right? Like think about any you know, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, whatever. You put their name into the database, you're not going to find what they own, even though you know they own many pieces of real property, um, or
Some you
someone of the
will.
like.
Some
Right.
celebrities you do find because they didn't get proper planning.
Right. So there's that too. But at the end of the day, someone is like, oh well, you know, I'm highly litigious. People are coming after me for what I say all the time or whatever I do. I'm about to buy this property. I want it to be in a hidden trust. I don't want my name there. And then they're closing in a week, and title isn't going to be okay with that, and they end up closing in their own name, which is everything that they didn't want to do because they
Right.
didn't have their ducks in a row. So it
Right.
was just funny that you brought that up. It's
Right.
happens so often.
All the time. And that's, in fact, that's why I started this whole series was as a real estate broker, I want to give myself the permission to say to a client, hey, I notice you own the property in your private name. Have you not done the estate plan? Is there some reason why you want it that way? And it's, I get different answers. One is, I never thought about it, was never told about it, as one. The other one that I'm sure you hear from time to time is, well, we did open a trust, but the property is in your name. Huh, how did that happen? So you must see
Yeah.
people who come to you, unfortunately, after the fact, and need to correct that situation. That's got to be a common business or
Of
process.
course, of course. That's why we have, you know, every 3 years with our clients. You know, our clients aren't a one and done type of event, or you just do a trust and you'll see you in 30 years. No, it's not that. It's every 3 years we make sure. Hey, what did you buy? What did you sell? Make sure it's titled in the trust, and have those 3 year meetings to really get to the bottom. Make sure that, yeah, ultimately the product that you get from here and the service that you get from here is just supposed to work, right? If you do a trust online, whatever you do, and you don't title things right, I have to go to court and fix that, right? I have to go to court and through a probate proceeding called and I'm going to talk gibberish right now, but through a hexstat is what it's called. I could move things into your trust with the proper paperwork, but all that is just additional time and money that you're paying to do something that you could have done if you would have done properly, wouldn't have happened, right?
Right.
So um, that's what I see a lot of. You know, people are like, oh yeah, I have a trust. And I'm like, okay, so when was the last time you looked at it? Oh well, it's been sitting in my safe for the past 25 years.
Right.
Well, I'm sure a lot has changed, and we probably should revisit that and just make sure you have all your ducks in a row for your children, not even for yourself. I mean, it's more for your children. It's more for your inheritors than anybody else.
Well, I think that's another misconception is, well, if I get a trust and that means I avoid litigation. But as we were talking beforehand,
Yeah.
if it's done properly, you can reduce dramatically the likelihood of litigation. But if you don't follow up and maintain things, you're going to end up in litigation, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And especially if you do something that's not um, what the law wants you to do.
Mm.
So, for instance, like let's say, oh, all my children are supposed to inherit equally, right? So one third or one fourth to each child. And let's say you go and you say, you know, I want one child to get it all, and that's just unnatural. Those are the types of things that usually find themselves into the courthouse, especially if you don't have all your ducks in a row, right? If you try to cut corners and you did one small little thing, you're missing one provision. Well, now you're stuck in 2, 3 year litigation,
Right.
going to be extremely costly for everybody, all your family members, plus
Yeah.
the emotional toll. You just, I don't know, wouldn't wish litigation on my worst enemy. But sometimes it's necessary to get you where you need to get to, and eventually those kinds of cases are the ones that are have the exact opposite effect. You wanted to save a thousand, 2,000, whatever amount of money that it is on this trust, and you end up paying hundreds of thousands, if not, you know, a lot more than that, depending on the amount of money that we see in courts these days.
One of the things I see commonly is, I think it's elder abuse, where somebody is elderly, sick, barely, almost incapacitated, maybe legally incapacitated, and somebody, a sibling, a relative, a caregiver, gets them to sign some document of questionable value.
Yeah.
What, if anything, can be done to protect your family members? If you're not there every day, or you have a caregiver there daily, or there's several siblings, and what can be done to protect the parents from, or is there anything that can be done to protect them from maybe being pressured into agreements that they otherwise wouldn't make?
Yeah, so the law um, already tries to protect you against
Right.
caregivers. There's various not loopholes, various mountains that they have to jump over before they could even get anything. So that's one, but you don't want to obviously rely on that. Um, what's best to do is to make sure that you have a proper power of attorney, proper estate plan, so that the right people are in charge. And in case of an incapacity, or let's say it's kind of like a 50-50. Does he have capacity? Does he not? Well, at least you have the paperwork to go get the the doctors to sign off on the right documents in order for you to stop any abuse for the elders. That's incredibly important, because if you don't have the right documents and you don't have the proper relationship to go into court to try to make um, something work, then you might be out of luck and you just have to stand on the sidelines because there's nothing really you can do. So it's important to have the proper stuff in place, the proper paperwork in place, and to let the right people know. This is where you find the paperwork. If you have a power of attorney, but it's stuck in your safe, how is anyone supposed to know who the power of attorney is until they drill the safe or somehow getting access to it? No one's going to know, and by then, most of most of your assets might be siphoned off into the abuser's account.
It can happen quickly. Another common misconception I get is people say to me, "Well, I don't need to go to create a trust. I have a will." Right? So, and
Uh,
that way I can avoid, and they always say, "Well, I can avoid probate." I said, "Well, I'm not an attorney, but your will is effectuated in probate court. Without, probate court, you can't do anything with it." Um, you must get
yeah.
that comment from people
Oh
regularly, right?
yeah. People don't know what the difference is most of the time. I get it. I mean, if I wasn't an attorney, I wouldn't know what the difference between a will and a trust is really, right off the bat. But it's as simple as you could. This is the simplest way that I've ever heard it. A will is a ticket to probate, right?
Yeah.
It is literally an admit one to a probate proceeding. It's like, here, judge, here's my ticket. Follow these rules. This is what I want. But I'm going to go through your proceeding. I'm going to go through that probate court, through all of that mess, all of that. There's fees that are set by percentages for the attorneys, depending on how much money your property is worth. It could be, tens and dozens, I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It just depends on what it is that you own. So yeah, that's what it is. A will is a ticket to probate, and in order to get out of probate, you need a trust. A trust is the only thing that takes you from the public world of probate, and puts you into the private section, which is the doing it on your own terms, with the people that you want, with the attorneys that your children want, and much faster, quicker, with less expense.
I had a case where a very sophisticated real estate investor with literally hundreds of properties never established a trust.
Oh boy.
And he became mentally incapacitated. So there was a conservatorship created for his benefit. Then he And at some point they create a trust. They got some money and then they create a trust. And then he passed and they discovered properties that had not been put into the trust. So he literally had a conservatorship and a probate and a trust all in the same person within about a 1.5 year period, 2 year period. So to me, this really inspires me to make sure, no matter how sophisticated somebody is, to ask the question, as a real estate agent, I can look at the public records and see, hey, I noticed this property is not in the trust. Is there some reason why? If it's not my business, okay, but I'm just trying to try to help here and ask the questions and follow up on it and such. How do you handle, seems to me also another thing I've seen happen, not with your clients, but I've seen happen with other people's clients, is that they create a trust, but then they never put the property into the trust. So it's kind of like they buy a safe and attach it to the wall and they feel real good, open and close the door. Yeah, it's a great safe, and bang on. Good. And they leave all their gold and jewelry outside the safe.
Right.
So they don't fund the trust.
Right.
How you must see that happen. That's you talk about the Hegstead is where maybe you can put it in the trust afterward, but that costs money and time.
It costs money and time. I think the most prevalent problem is not titling assets properly.
Right.
The way I always, you say it's safe, and that's another good way to look at it. But I just look at it as a bucket. You got to put the stuff in the bucket for the bucket to work, right? You got to literally insert the coin into the arcade machine for it to work, right? So that's what it is. So you could create this beautiful bucket, but it's not gonna work. It's gonna have the greatest provisions of all time, but it's just you still have to go to probate. So you didn't do anything. It's just it doesn't work. That's what it is. And so you have to. It's called funding. You got to move the stuff into the bucket for it to work, and that's depends on what asset. It's not one task for each asset. You can't just sign a document and that's it. All my assets go in. It depends. Is it a bank account? Is it a money market account? Is it a piece of property? Is it land, oil? You name it, right? Even the refrigerator in your house, right? There's a way to move that into the trust, right? So you just gotta make sure you do everything properly.
And there's two other parts that come to that. One is to make sure it goes into the trust as effective. You may need title insurance, or you may need to document that transfer properly, because if you don't have title insurance, the title company is going to say, well, how did you get it out of personal property into the trust? Where is that? We're sure that happened properly. What do you advise clients to? Do you have them on their own make the transfer? How do you
the transfer of what exactly? I'm sorry.
Real property in particular.
Real property, yeah, we do it all. We do what we can. So if it's possible for me to do it for you, I will move it into the trust. But for instance, bank accounts, I'm not going to be able to go into your bank and move that. The bank's going to shun me away in 3 seconds. So there's some things that you have to do, right? So this whole process, it's a two-way street. Yeah, I'll do the work, but I need you on board, and I need you to do certain things for it to work properly. And at the end of the day, with the system that I have here, we make sure that it's all good and insure it, as I said, a couple of years later when things change, because life changes, right? You don't think about your trust every single day as you move along. When you buy and sell real property, you're so focused on making the deal, and you just want it to close, that you're not thinking about, title, this, that, the other. So we sit down and make sure that is what you want.
Right. I always say it's never a problem until it's a problem. I was making an offer on a property, an investment property, and my wife had some sort of a collection account that was wrong from years ago. That was on her and not on me. We've been married 36 years, so it was some sort of a mix-up. But in the rush of things, the lender was saying, hey, we got to get this pre-approval out. Can you buy the property without your wife? And I told my wife, of course, it's fine. But then I thought, yeah, it's always fine until it's a problem. What did I just do? So we had to go back and think about how we're going to title it and such. The thing I offer my clients is, and if you're listening and you're one of my clients, when you meet with Liran or any attorney to review your trust, let me know. I'll be glad to pull the public records of your deeds to make sure they are moved in the trust. Sometimes we'll get the documents prepared and you'll send them to the county, but if they don't record it or they don't record it properly, then you're going to have some problems down the road. So feel free to reach out to me if you're my client to to get copies of those deeds and make sure they've been transferred over. What do you see as the biggest challenge people have in getting their estate plan done ahead of time? What do you see when you talk to people and advise them? What's the thing that seems to hold them back from doing what you know as a professional they should get done?
It's procrastination by far. People just don't want to do it because they don't think they're going to pass away tomorrow. They don't think something's going to have to get hit by a bus tomorrow. No
Right.
one, no one thinks about their demise. No one thinks about what's going to happen to them until it's usually too late. But usually, what sparks it takes them out of the procrastination mode is something close to them, like a family member passes or a friend they would just attended a funeral or something. It usually gets the gears rolling, and then we get the call. Yeah, at that point.
Well, I'm hoping this short talk we had today will be that uh, impetus for people that I know. I've known Liran for a while. We've talked. We've done some business, and I think more importantly, know each other. And not every training's for everybody, but you got to find somebody. You got to do the work ahead of time. And the number one thing I find in every business is doing the preparation to enjoy the success in the long run. Liran, I know when you go to your website, liavlaw.com, ALIAV law.com, and you have on there peace of mind, book a call. So tell me about that. Somebody who's interested and they wanted to book a call with you. What would that cover? What should they expect from that time with you?
So we have book of calls for any sort of situation that has to do with trust, estate planning, probate, litigation, even. We do litigate cases as well, and especially when it comes to property disputes or landlord tenant. Sometimes we even do those types of lawsuits as well. But the book a call is there for you to, you basically have full, uh, you'll see my calendar and you could get directly on my calendar. Once you do a book a call and you see, you click on any date and you'll see the available times and it goes directly on my calendar. And then,
Nice.
once you fill out there's a little short, what is your case about type thing. Fill that out and I will call you. It's completely free. You could expect an attorney to call you, which is me, and we'll discuss your matter and see if it's something I can help with. Um, Also know that there is a webinar that I've created for you. That is usually when you just here refresh the page, you'll see it come up. It's a pop-up.
Oh yeah. Click through
Yeah.
the website.
Um, and it says register now, and it's a full-on. Basically, we used to do seminars back in the day, but
That's
since
where I met
COVID,
you.
we,
I met you at
yeah,
somewhere you did in El
yeah,
Segundo, I
there you
think,
go.
about 4 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
And you were
And
great.
so
I think that was the reason why I made a point of introducing myself to you and following up with you because I thought you really did a nice job of explaining things in a way that
well,
people can
thank you.
really accept it.
And you just put in your first name and email. Yeah, exactly. It's you'll get to that webinar. It's we usually like people who want to do estate plans to get a firm education in what it is that you're doing, because there's so many things you can do with a trust. Anything from avoiding probate to asset protection to how making sure your children are getting the money in the right way without them losing their benefits, right? So if that's another big problem that I see all the time. Someone gets an inheritance, and then they lose their government benefits because the government's like, well, you have money now. And is there a way that we could have avoided that situation? There is. For your children, there's definitely a way, and it starts with you. If it's too late, I have to speak with the child and tell them, we're sorry, you're off government benefits. There's really not much we can do. There might be something uh, less good to do for him in that case to allow him to use the money and put him into a special trust, but it's not as good as if you do it. It's much better if the parents do it as opposed to the child. So we do those kinds of plans as well. Uh, Divorce, creditors, anything that the child might have in his life, a drug problem, alcoholism, whatever it is. We discuss it, we go through it, and deep after you sign up for my consultation after you watch the webinar, and we really go through the whole thing and see if we are a right fit for each other. So that's our process usually here for estate planning and for the book a call, which is any other matter usually. Um, and we'll usually get to you fairly quickly. You could, you saw the sign up page right there. You could book a call anytime from today, tomorrow, the next day. We usually are available for those 15-minute calls.
Well, and when I first met you, that was one of the things that impressed me also was I had done kind of a comprehensive review of the services of that industry. And I've been from the lowest price point where they met at a Denny's, basically a notary and a template, to some really high end ones. And I thought you offered for the people I work with a good blend of deep quality service, but also very personal. I think that was the thing that, if I refer somebody, I want to know it's somebody that I know is going to take care of them and do what's right by the customer first, rather than just focus on their fee exclusively. So, look, Liran, I appreciate the chance to chat with you today.
Of
We'll have in
course,
the notes the contact info, liavlaw.com, and go on his website if you're interested. Book some time with him if you have a particular question to talk about. See the webinar, learn about estate planning, and see if he's the right fit for you. Any last suggestions or comments you want to throw out before we finish up?
no, not in particular.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll see you guys soon, whoever it is. And if you have other questions, feel free to just book a call. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. And as
All
always,
right.
all the best. Bye-bye.